What's up, Warrior Nation? Welcome back to the Warrior Rewind, where we take time to visit with members of the Valley Christian athletics community, past and present. Once a warrior, always a warrior. This is your host, Rob Fair, VC class of 2009, assistant athletic director, and Warrior football and lacrosse coach. As always, feel free to connect with me on Twitter at RobFair3 or email me at rfair@vcs.net to nominate a new guest that you'd like to hear from. You can find the Warrior Rewind just about anywhere podcasts are available, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Now let's get to work. Jen Bergman, a fellow 2009 classmate of mine, made an immediate impact when she first stepped on the Valley Christian High School campus in the fall of 2005, winning a cross-country CCS championship her freshman year. Jen would go on to win two more, a total of 3 CCS championships during her time as a Warrior. Jen also won the West Catholic Athletic League each year she competed. She was honored several times throughout her high school career by the San Jose Mercury News as an Athlete of the Week, and ultimately was selected her senior year by the Mercury News as their Athlete of the Year for the 2008-2009 school year. She also qualified for the 2008 Footlocker National Championship, an event that only invites the top 40 participants from across the United States. By competing in the Footlocker National Championship, Jen opened the door to receive a full athletic scholarship to any school of her choosing. She chose the University of Arizona. At U of A, Jen was a 7-time first-team All-American, was selected as a team captain her junior and senior year, and placed third in nationals in the 10K in 2012. Jen was a Pac-12 runner-up in 2011, 2012, and was the Pac-12 champion in 2013. After college, Jen first signed a professional contract and ran for a team in Washington, D.C. for 2 years, then Portland, Oregon, where she finished 61st in the Marathon Olympic trials in 2016. She then moved to Boulder, Colorado, where she currently lives, and most recently placed 17th at the Marathon Olympic trials on February 29th of this year. Currently, Jen is the marketing manager and lead coach at Viral Fitness Group. Jen, thanks for coming on the Warrior Rewind.
Thank you, Rob. That was so nice.
Yeah.
You don't hear people list your accomplishments very often.
Well, you've got a lot of them, so it actually took some time to put it together, but definitely
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Impressive resume. One of the most impressive kind of things to note here was kind of the drastic improvement in your Marathon Olympic trial finish from 2016, where you placed 61st, to 2020, where you placed 17th. What changed, or what did you do to improve so much during that time?
I actually haven't done a podcast or anything on this yet because the trials were pretty recent. I was telling you, I feel very grateful. It was right before things started closing down for this COVID epidemic. So I feel very grateful that it still happened. But yeah, a lot can happen in 4 years. I was in 28, so I was 24 when I ran in the 2016 Marathon Olympic trials. And it was my first marathon, actually, because you can qualify for a marathon by running a half marathon standard. So a lot of it is just due to experience, and a lot of it's due to growing up. And I changed the way, not just the way I trained, not the way I trained physically, but I changed a lot of things mentally. I took about a year and a half off from competing during that time as well. And I traveled through South America for about a total of 4 months with my partner, Josh. During that time that I wasn't competing, I was still running every day. So I really fell in love with running again. I realized I don't run just because I want to win races. I run because I do love to run. So that also helped. And then moving to Boulder, Colorado, we moved here about 14 or 15 months before the trials. And I have a new coach. I have teammates that are, almost everyone on the team qualified for the trials. There's 10 of us. So that's pretty solid team, and my coach does everything except put one foot in front of the other for us. So there was a ton of different factors that played into it, and when you make it to a start line just healthy, that's a huge, because marathon training is so hard on your body. So there was so many things that changed, a lot of growing up, a lot of life events, and just a lot of gratitude to make it healthy to the start line. And obviously I ran a very patient race, and and had a good strategy going in. And there was lots of hills, growing up in the Bay Area, even, going to high school on a hill. I love hills. So running up that hill every day eventually paid off.
Yeah, there it is. What would you say is, obviously, other than 17th place finish at the Marathon Olympic Trials, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment in your running career?
So it was really hard picking where I wanted to go to school. I think just growing up in San Jose, California, I had that desire to leave California and try something new. So I knew I didn't want to go to any schools in California, but that leaves, 49 other states to choose from. It was extremely stressful. And I made a list at one point of like 30 schools. And it's literally the reason I ended up going to Arizona is because the coach called me every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. She never failed. And me and her we just talked on the phone for an hour and a half yesterday. She went from an authority figure to one of my best friends pretty quickly after college. And she told me that, every week she would tell me, oh, this chick just committed to Arizona. This person just committed. This girl from San Diego just committed. This girl from Arizona just committed. And all these girls were signing up. And I really liked the idea of going to a school. Arizona was, the track team is obviously good, but the distance team the women's team hadn't been to nationals in a decade. They were an unranked team. So the idea of going in with, 10, a team of 10 freshmen that could grow together, that was really exciting to me. So I committed to Arizona, and everything just really, really clicked right away. Me and my roommate, I was a maid of honor at her wedding when she got married in South America or in Dominican Republic. So we've been best friends for over a decade now, which is crazy. She was my training partner. She was my sidekick. And so we qualified for nationals. We were the last team to get in our freshman year. And we finished 31st place out of 30th place out of 31 teams. So that doesn't sound awesome, but it was the first time we'd made it to nationals. 6 out of the 7 of the team were freshmen. It was the first time the team had been to nationals in I think 8 or 9 years. And then by the time my senior year, we ended up finishing 5th. And we were always top 10 after that. So it was really fun to grow with people my age, and instead of just joining a team that was already dominating the Pac-12 or dominating nationals, it was fun to kind of, I don't want to say start at the bottom because it's University of Arizona, it's a D1 school, but to start unranked and end my college career 5th in the nation as a team.
You went to college in Arizona, and then now you live in Colorado. 2 pretty drastic climates, major climate shift there. 2 questions on that. A, how has it impacted your training? And B, which conditions do you prefer?
I have a distinct memory going into my freshman year when my parents were dropping me off for freshman weekend, and it was 106 degrees outside. And I remember crying, being like, I've made the worst decision of my life. I am like, I need to look into transferring. Like, what the hell am I thinking? 106 degrees is hot. However, I've learned moving around so much since high school, I guess, that you can adapt to anything. It just takes a little bit of time. Like, for example, Arizona's the desert. So yes, it will get up to 110 degrees during the hottest months, which usually we weren't even there for. It's June and July.
Sure.
And part of August. But it can get up to 110, but it's the desert. So at nighttime, it cools off a lot. We had 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. practice every single morning throughout cross country. And it never felt hot. My mom and sister live in Austin, Texas right now. That's hot. It's humid and it's hot, 80 degrees and sunny, where people, people that live in humidity know this. It's just always torture. You can't escape it. In dry climates, you just go early in the morning, and it was never an issue. So that first weekend, I was like, I'm never going to survive here. And literally first morning of practice, getting up at 5 a.m. was rough first couple weeks, but I got used to it. And, yeah, the heat never bothered me. I actually love the dry heat.
Okay. Which has it impacted your training at all, being in the higher elevation? Or
I never had too rough of a time adjusting to altitude here in Boulder, Colorado. I know a lot of people, they talk about altitude sickness and stuff. I think that going to school or somewhere where it was so dry, and Tucson's not at altitude necessarily. I think it's at like 2,500 feet. So it's a little bit cooler there than it is in Phoenix. Usually about 5 or 10 degrees cooler, just because it's a little bit higher up. But I think having that, 4.5 years of being in a super dry climate helped adjust to living at altitude, which is also dry and thinner air.
Sure. Now we all know that the favorite training climate has to be San Jose, California, right?
Yeah, San Jose is perfect year round. You really can't beat it. As far as those is the best place to train, training up at altitude makes a huge difference. The air is thinner, so when you go back down to sea level, you go so much faster. It feels like you're flying.
Wow. In speaking of San Jose, you were at Valley Christian from third grade,
Fourth grade. Yeah.
fourth grade till your senior year. So, I think the word warrior definitely defines you and who you are. How is it that you would describe what being a warrior means to you?
Because I think being a warrior is striving for excellence. So I'll kind of put those two words together. I know that's Valley Christian's mission is quest for excellence, and we are warriors of Valley Christian. So excellence is living by your values, I would say. And if you always strive and reach your goals with your values, success is always going to follow. And just not being afraid to fail over and over again. If you fail enough times, eventually you will be successful. Going after something that makes you uncomfortable, living out of your comfort zone. You don't ever achieve anything that's worth being proud of by staying in your comfort zone. So yeah, going for stuff that makes you a little bit scared and just always staying true to your values, because then even if you do fail at something, you know that you've stuck to your values and you're learning and growing from it.
What compliment stands out as the best that you've ever received?
People that have told me I'm a good leader and I'm inspirational. That always makes me feel very, very good. Because running in high school, you're on a team. In college, you're on a team. But being a professional runner, it is kind of a selfish sport. You're not part of a team anymore. You're running to pursue your own goals. And it's not professional football or basketball. I'm never gonna sign $1 million+ contract. So knowing that I can use my achievements to help inspire people, that kind of ties in with pursuing excellence and sticking to my core values. I've never just been training is my job. I've always either been private training people, training people as a coach. Usually I do a lot of group fitness stuff, and then I'll do coaching on the side. It's something that I really enjoy. And it's like if you cook something and use a recipe, you want to know that you're doing it from someone that's an awesome cook. Same thing with fitness. If you're getting coaching lessons from someone, it makes me feel really good to know that they trust me. And that, when I ran the Olympic trials, I just had such an overwhelming amount of people that I haven't talked to, since high school or middle school or college that I trained 6-7 years ago, that sent me messages saying they were following along and they were so excited or so proud of me after. For knowing that I've helped inspire people and that people still feel comfortable reaching out to me after all these years and stuff, that makes me feel really good.
Very cool. What is one thing that running has done for your life that most people wouldn't expect? This is a question that I like to ask people because that obviously running is good for your health. Cardiovascularly, you are in great shape, right? It's good for so many different facets that are obvious. What's something that's not obvious about running that has benefited your life?
Yeah, that's a good question, because another way people will word that question is, why do you love running so much? I hate it. And it has, it was a hard question for me for a lot of years, because it's something that's hard to explain. I've done a lot of reflecting on it, and I think that, the reason I do love running so much is because, or the reason I've been a runner, I've been a runner for over half of my life. And it's not just to be faster or to be the fastest person or to win races. It's to figure out what my potential is, and striving for your potential and finding meaning in life, I think, is really what brings happiness, not just from the goals that you accomplish, but from trying to achieve them. And, running has taught me to pay attention to goodness in the world. It's taught me gratitude. It's given me the tools to go for anything that I want. It's not just necessarily that I'm disciplined in running now. I can be resilient in a lot of other tasks. And again, it's, running it's my meditation. It teaches me to appreciate where I live, my surroundings. It's how I clear my head. But it is also, I've asked myself that a lot of times, like right now, I haven't been able to run since the trials because I've had a little bit of a knee injury. And with everything going on with COVID, it's taught me that I have to translate all those tools that I've learned from running into other aspects of life. Because, just like a job or sports, or anything, especially now with everything shut down, you realize that how you define yourself might not always be there. I know every day that I go for a run, I'm grateful to be running, because that's not guaranteed every day of my life. All it takes is a serious injury and you could never run again. So it's using the tools that it's taught me, and applying those to other aspects of my life.
Very wise. I think that's good advice for, the young athletes who are listening, to understand that, be grateful that you're in a position where you can continue to compete and to continue to perform and all that kind of stuff. So
enjoy it every day you can, for sure. I know in college, that's a big thing, because the reality is, if you make it to college, you're super lucky to compete, but when you're done with your senior year, the reality is you're probably not going to compete anymore. So it's just important to enjoy that time, but more importantly, to think about how you can use that when you're done with the sport, because anyone that's an athlete, you can translate those skills to other aspects of your life.
What's a common myth about running a marathon, and how would you challenge that myth, or maybe not a marathon, but just kind of any sort of distance?
I guess since I've been a trainer, I've heard that you have to have a certain body type, or you have to have a certain type or be a runner or something to do it. And that's it's easy for me to say because I've been a runner my whole life, but I've trained people who don't have runner bodies and they've done marathons.
Sure.
So anybody that wants to run a marathon, that's obviously physically able to run, anyone that wants to can do it. It's just like anything, it seems impossible if you don't run at all, but you start slow. You start at a mile, 2 miles, and you can do anything by just building up slowly and sticking to it.
What is something that you're not very good at, and how do you find ways to insulate that weakness?
I think any athlete can agree that no one's great at dealing with injury. When I love running, so when I can't run, it kind of makes me go a little bit crazy. So just dealing with it, fitness comes in phases. There's highs and lows to everything, and life will always be hard at some point, and it's just about perspective and how you look at it. Just like the pain of a marathon, everything's temporary. You just gotta toughen up and get through it. Anxiety is always something that I've had an issue with, and obviously running helps with that. So when I can't run, it feels like it's a lot worse. But it's just staying in the moment and staying mindful and remembering that today's all you have. There's no point in stressing about, especially as athletes, it's easy to stress about the future, the past. This race happened, or this happened, and I'm not going to be able to compete well. It's just, remember, like, you're fine today. Focus on what you can do now. Focus on the next task, because that's all you can do.
Sure. Kind of my favorite way to wrap up the podcast is always to give you an opportunity to imagine going back in time, traveling in a time machine to Valley Christian back when you were a student there, and having the opportunity to meet with yourself as a young student athlete, knowing the things that you know today. And so there's kind of two parts to the question. The first is, what advice would you have for Jen early in her high school athletic career? Freshman, sophomore, maybe your first cross-country season, or even that sophomore season, your second. And then the second part of that question is, what advice do you have for Jen at the end of her high school career, junior, senior year, going off to college? If you had the opportunity, what two pieces of advice would you have for yourself?
That's a good one. If only you could have a future self when you were younger, right?
Yeah, right.
I would tell my younger freshman self. I was so young then too. I went to college when I was 17, so I think I was like 13 when I started. I would tell 13-year-old Jen to trust yourself, and I think freshman is such an awkward, being that age is so awkward. You're going through so many things physically as a woman, or turning into a woman. Emotionally, you're always trying to feel like you need to fit in. So I would just say, have fun, trust yourself, and don't try and fit in. I don't think a lot of people feel like they find their place early in high school. You're always worried that people are talking about you. You're so paranoid about what people are thinking, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't. What do you think is a big deal in high school? 5 years later, it will never matter. 10 years later, it won't matter. So just relax, enjoy it. It's such a short time. It goes by quick. And then I would tell junior, senior year Jen that you're gonna, I was so looking forward to getting to college. It's all I wanted to do. The injuries, I had knee issues for a large chunk of time. I can't remember. It was like sophomore or junior year in high school, and I was like, my life's gonna end. I'm not gonna get a scholarship, or I'm not gonna get to run in college. I'll just say relax, man. I think I grew so much. Like, it was sophomore or junior year, and I literally was growing so fast my knees were just in too much pain to be able to run. So like, just chill. You're growing, your body's maturing. Let it happen. It's gonna be okay. Just be patient. Bodies always heal themselves. Don't stress so much about what college you're gonna go to. You're gonna figure it out. Listen to your people that are, your authority, to the coaches that you trust, your parents. They know way a heck of a lot more than you do. And yeah, the little things just don't matter. Like, having a bad race in high school is funny now. Like, it was so insignificant. I remember I got sick my senior year right before track, really sick. So I couldn't do track season. And like, that was the most devastating thing I could imagine at the time. And as soon as I got tired, less than 6 months later, it didn't matter. I was in college running, having the best time ever. So just don't sweat the small things, because in the scheme of life, it really just doesn't matter.
Good advice for sure. Well, Jen, thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast and taking time out of your day to visit a little bit with me. Before we go, real quick, how can people get in touch with you or follow along in your career, social media, Instagram, Twitter?
Yeah, social media is always easy. Like I said, I was so overwhelmed with all the messages after the trials on Facebook and on Instagram. I probably check my Instagram messages more than Facebook, I would say. So
Okay.
either one works, but I think I'm a little more on Instagram right now. So yeah, anyone can always shoot me a message. It's always fun to talk to people you haven't talked to. I still can't believe it's been over 10 years since we were in high school. But
Yeah.
it's always fun to follow along with people and catch up with somebody from your childhood and from high school.
What's your Instagram handle?
Jen Bergy, JenBergy 16.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jen. Stay safe during shelter in place,
You as well.
COVID-19 stuff, and keep running fast.
Will do. Thanks so much, Rob.